So that
then
means we're gonna kick off with our meet and greet this evening. So good evening, everyone. We want to welcome everyone here tonight, our long-term and short-term friends, our distinguished guests, for our meet and greet, working together for a more resilient and sustainable future for generations to come. On this beautiful Tuesday evening of the 19th of December, we're very delighted to be able to host all these amazing speakers. They are very active people doing good for their world, for our world and their countries. So we will be hearing our guest or our context from our UN team Vienna of the Women's Federation, and all on migrating and tackling migration and tackling human trafficking specifically, and how to empower our youth. So without further ado, I first would like to welcome Mrs. Renate Amsbauer. She is the president of Women's Federation Austria, but also our very active secretary at our UN team. Mrs. Renate, the floor is yours for the opening remarks.
Thank you very much. I really want to say also good afternoon, good evening, good night, because we are spanning the globe from Austria, actually very small place in Vienna, Austria. It's one of the smaller capital cities in worldwide. But we are spanning the globe to Nigeria, to Kenya, to Philippines, to Los Angeles, and everything in between. Whoever is joining us, I really want to say hello to everyone and thank you so much for coming. And I must say the input, the initiative for this meet and greet, it's a second round already, is greatly deserves Merle Balan. She will be giving closing remarks. She is a Filipino living in Austria with a lot of energy. And also the second point is that we are at the UN in Vienna, are often invited for constructive dialogues among NGOs of all kinds and the UN and the permanent missions, representatives of permanent missions. And the topic is always, how can we counter international crime? How can we counter narcotic drugs, misuse of drugs? How can we how can we help young people to stay on a straight line in their life? And so we are so grateful that on various ways we got to know all of you. Some are our colleagues, we are all colleagues for this purpose. And as Women Federation, we really encourage all the projects that help people to stay in their country, to find a future of hope in their country. Because you want to stay home and you have to help your own country to grow and to develop. And young people are so inspired often and they have great ideas. So if the surrounding can help them to fulfill their ideas, to set them in, put them into practice, then something will develop. So we are very grateful for this opportunity to share with you. And we are hoping that this evening can bring inspiration and maybe even some practical exchange in the future. We will share contact details. We're always ready to help with this because every one of you is doing something really amazing. We got to know all of you one by one. So I want to take no more time. We're really excited to listen to your presentations, and we really hope that this evening is it's worthwhile being together. Thank you very much. So I give back the microphone to our dear sister Kyungin.
Thank you so much, Renate, and for your opening remarks. And my apologies, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Kyungin van der Ven Oliveira, and I am part of the UN team in Vienna, remotely because I'm in Amsterdam, based in Amsterdam. So like Renate mentioned, we would like to offer this platform of meet and greet alongside the constructive dialogues at the UN. And again, very delighted and honored that we have all of these amazing speakers here today. And I would like to introduce our first speaker of today, Mr. Patrick Erlandson. He's the founder and executive director of FatherCon. He's based in America. and he will be sharing about his project today with us. So the importance of fatherhood as a prevention against human trafficking. Mr. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to see most of you again after having visited Vienna in May. I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and really kind of joy-filled holidays. My house right now today, we have my younger daughter who's about 7.5 months pregnant and anticipating the birth of a boy next month. But at the same time, in 3 days, my mother is turning 100. And so we have this incredible span of humanity and this celebration of life going on in our home right now. And which really kind of brings me to, kind of my work. And that what we want is not just children who survive, but children who are thriving in our world. Children today have greater opportunities than anyone has ever had in human history, and yet they're under greater threat than ever before. My wife went actually with Women's Federation to Niger back in the 90s. And at that time, Niger had one of the lowest mortality rates in the world. It was a tragic situation for children in that country. So she worked to bring kind of medical aid to the country. And it really set into, my heart and my mind, we really need to do a better job of protecting children. So when I first learned about human trafficking, I was working with UNHCR in Los Angeles, and it was something that I just couldn't turn away from. So I began working on the prevention of human trafficking. That became my field and area of attention and focus. And that led to working with men. So getting men to engage in this issue. Up until then, there was very, very few men that were taking human trafficking seriously, at least here in America and in our realm here. But the idea was to really start to introduce men to the fact that we are necessary to actually bring human trafficking to an end, because especially on the sex trafficking side of things, it's men who are the drivers of this problem. So we started Men Standing Against Trafficking. We started, educating men and drawing men into the issue. But beyond that, I kept thinking, and I wanted to go upstream, like what is causing the vulnerability in our children that's allowing them to be so easily exploited. It's different in other parts of the world, but here in America, we have children who are meeting someone on Instagram, on social media sites, and within 2 weeks, they're going off and meeting this person and disappearing. And it's a vulnerability that's coming from our homes. And also we have boys that are coming out of our homes that are feeling entitled to exploit other human beings. So in working on the prevention of human trafficking, we've done a number of different awareness raising events. We've done a lot of kinds of things to raise the understanding within our communities of these kind of vulnerabilities, the tactics that traffickers use, the areas that parents can get involved in safeguarding their children. But kind of beyond that, to me, it's like we have so many men who are devaluing their own significance in the development of their children and in their influence in their communities, and that we have to really turn that around. So our work since starting FatherCon in 2018 has been, how do we educate men about their significance, but not just men. The problem is that as women have become more empowered, as women have gained their rightful place in the world, of influence and impact, outside of their homes for society at large. One of the problems is the truly significant role, the irreplaceable, unique contribution that men make to child growth and development has kind of been sidelined or misunderstood or not appreciated. And this has led to an awful lot of men feeling that their role in the home is irrelevant or not so important. And that's caused an increasing number of divorces and breakdowns within the home. And all of those things have a very shattering effect on how children see themselves and how they develop. One of the things that's come out of my work with FatherCon is an understanding that the children's sense of their worthiness to be loved, that I am a human being that's worth someone loving me comes more from the father than from the mother. The mother has a natural bonding through pregnancy. So the child is born with this automatic connection to the mother. And of course, I'm simplifying. This is kind of a generalization, of course. But when a father gets down on his hands and knees, when a father interacts with a child, it communicates on a very subconscious, psychological, very deep spiritual level that this person wants to be with me. This person values me. And so that child grows up with a much stronger sense of their own worth and their own worthiness to be loved. And this is, I mean, just incredibly significant and important. Also, the development of empathy. Although the mother embodies empathy, the woman tends to just live out this spirit of empathy, but the father's the one who really raises a child to be empathetic. And that has been completely misunderstood. I think until very, very recently, through studies that have been done that show that there's nothing comes close to a child developing empathy than through presence of a father, through their time spent with a father. So we've been doing a lot with FatherCon. We do a lot of like education of fathers, of mothers. Our real hope is now that we can start to educate on a much deeper level boys to aspire to fatherhood. We have children now that don't even think marriage is important. We have boys that are romantically involved with animation characters. They don't even see the value of a relationship with another human being. We are living in such a time. But if we can start to raise boys to aspire to fatherhood, this will make them better men. It'll make them better husbands. It'll make them better fathers. We will not see the vulnerability created in our homes that's leading to an exploitation of other human beings. I mean, just on one more point, I think we are messaged constantly, you know, globally. The messaging all around us is that we're entitled to something. We're entitled to perfect, wonderful sex 24 hours a day. We're entitled to our hair not falling out. We're entitled to perfectly white teeth. The messaging to us is constant that we're entitled to something that we don't have, something more. And that leads to a dissatisfaction with what we have. It also leads to a lack of gratitude. We stop appreciating what we do have. And that leads to a justification where it's okay for me to take from another person because it's my right. I'm supposed to have this. I deserve this because everyone's telling me I do. So instead of living with a sense of gratitude and service to others, we now become dominated by this sense of entitlement that allows human trafficking and so many other abuses and crimes against humanity to thrive. And I'm going to stop right there. How about that? I really appreciate so much Women's Federation and for this opportunity to be here and talk a little bit about my work with FatherCon.
Wow, amazing, Uncle Patrick. Thank you so much for explaining a bit about your project and the thought and the knowledge behind this. And I'm very proud of you. You made it within 7 minutes.
That's a first.
It's great. Yeah, that's the first. And I'm looking forward to your next 3 minutes at the UN. So you did great. Thank you so much for explaining. And I'm sure there will be quite some questions. So, and also, who would have known that, like, that kids learn empathy as well a lot through the father's presence. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. We will go to our next speaker, Mr. Justus MOKAYA. He's an ambassador of peace and founder and director of ADESUVA in Kenya. He's passionate about educating and empowering young people. And he also invited the international president of our brother organization, our young NGO YSP in his country, Kenya. Mr. MOKAYA, thank you so much for being here tonight with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me here. Good evening, everybody here in Kenya. It's evening, morning, wherever you may be, and I'm hoping that you are hearing me, all of you. Sorry, I was late to come in because we had some issues with power interruption in this city of Nairobi. My name is Justus MOKAYA, as it has been put there, and I am founder and the director for an organization called Ezesha Plus Kenya here in Kenya. To Ezesha means enabled, so we do more than enabling. That is why we call it Ezesha Plus. I have come from a background that was not very good. I was born and brought up in a very humble background, with my mother not having a job, anything to do, with my father physically disabled. So I came up in an environment that were not very good here in Kenya. When I got the opportunity to finish Form 4, that is the high school, and joined college, after that I thought of what is it that I could do for the youth of this country, because one of the things affecting Kenyan youth is drug and substance abuse, crime, and many other issues. But now I was focusing mostly on crime and drug and substance abuse. So one of the reasons why I realized many people go into crime, especially the Kenyan youth, is because of lack of what to do. That is lack of job, and now they go ahead to get some unfair means of getting ways of living. For example, here in Nairobi, there are some parts of Nairobi where you cannot freely move because those guys will smuggle your phone and the rest so as to go sell for little coins and earn a living. We have seen in the most recent times demonstrations in Kenya, political demonstrations, youth being shot by the police, because even politicians realized that these youths have nothing to do, and for that reason now they could want to use them for their gain. So I started my organization, which usually goes to the churches. We use mostly churches and worship centers, identifying very needy youth, especially in informal settlements. We enroll them in our institution because we run this organization as a training center for technical and vocational courses. Those things that take around 3 to 6 months for them to finish, because again, we realize youths do not have that long patience to be in school. So I have literally partnered with the government of Kenya and a number of partners to get youths from these crime-dominated areas, and we enroll them in our institution. We train them for 6 months. Once we have done that, then after graduation, we link them to job opportunities. If we train one youth in a family, then that youth getting a small salary after the training, that's when we have linked them, they go a long way transforming their families, that they're able now to earn a living. So it's a menace in Nairobi here and in Kenya, that is crime and drug substance abuse. Once we get them out of where they come from their areas, and then we engage them in meaningful participation in society, because we also do character building, especially partnering with the Women Federation for World Peace, International Association for Youth, and Students for Peace. We teach them character building and the rest. So literally that is what I do in this country, and so far we have trained in my organization as a young person. Actually, I borrowed $20, that is $200, to start this my organization from a police officer, which has so far created a great impact. I've been recognized by a number of institutions, including this platform that I've been given today, is out of what I've done. So through this, we have been able to eradicate crime, we've been able to eradicate drug abuse, substance abuse, because now these youth are more engaged and they're doing meaningful activities. Acacia Plus usually relies on well-wishers and partners. So we have had a number of partners, including all of you here present here. I know a good number of you are going to become our partners, because through this way, then we are able to recruit even more youth who are into crime, then train them, because training here in our country is one of the sure ways of ensuring that these youth are busy and they have something to do. I had shared a slide here. I don't know if I'm able to share of a number of activities that we do in society, but I shared it to the president there. I think perhaps she may share them as I continue speaking or as I finish and wind up. So this way, we have done actually total transformation to the youth, and we look forward through my organization to recruit even very many vulnerable youth into this program, so that now once they're with us, once they have trained, they have something to do. They have something from where they can earn a living, and that way we eradicate. Because even the human trafficking, then this is part of crime as I can classify it. People that go picking girls, we've seen situations in Kenya, people being taken to some countries that we may not literally mention by name, is because of lack of what to do. So vulnerability brings about all this. So I look forward, I'm very happy to be in this meeting today. And I look forward even to get more partners, even to become friends with all of you here, so that as a young person here in Kenya, from a very humble background, I'm also able to transform many people, reduce crime, and the many unwanted activities in society. I think my time is up, and I'm not sure, but I think my time is up, and I thank you, and looking forward to. I was interrupted much. Kenya is a country where we have a total national blackout, the whole country, so it really disrupted me today. It's even by God's grace that I'm here, but I'm very thankful. I really was regretting that I may not join the group and the meeting. Thank you so much for listening to me. I look forward to having you as our partners. And the slides that I've shared there, Madam President, if you may play them, they have our details, the photos of what I do, the graduations that we do, and many other things. Thank you so much for having me. And this is an opportunity that you've given to a young man like me to grow himself. I'm so happy to be amidst senior people like you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. MOKAYA, for being here. And we feel very lucky that all the technique is working with us, that you're able to be here. Thank you so much for explaining what you're doing for the youth in your country, and for emphasizing the utmost importance of partnering with others. You're partnering even with the government, working hard to improve the future perspectives of the youth. So thank you so much also for being here, and we hope to connect with more and more friends. That's also the reason of our meet and greet, and to be a platform for all these great activities. So it's time for our next speaker. That's Mr. Gene Alcantara. He's a writer, journalist, and political correspondent, and he has a consultancy office for Filipino migrants, and he will in the UK, and he will be talking about his experiences concerning. At the moment, he is in Manila, so it's quite late. Thank you so much that you're still here with us. We really appreciate it, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so Lily. Okay, so I've just prepared some slides, so it's easier for people to see what I'm talking about. Essentially, where's Lily? Okay, so in my work as an immigration advisor, I come across so many people who obviously have come to the UK to do whatever, and quite a number of them end up undocumented, perhaps, or with immigration problems. And not just in the UK, also in Europe. So my first example, Lily, my first example are really truck drivers. Okay, that's it. Next page, please. Yes, so my first example is about 11 drivers who were employed in this case I think in Poland, and so they had a Polish contract to become drivers in Europe, and then they were used to drive trucks in Europe. And what this means is they were driving practically all hours. They don't have days off, really. They don't have accommodation because they basically lived in their cabins. They go to the toilet and take a shower when they go to a petrol station with these facilities. And they just do not have protection. So that was, this first slide is dated June 2016. Next slide, please, Lily. Okay, so the next one is 6 years after, June 2022. It's the same thing. In this case, 8 Filipino colleagues decided to complain about human trafficking in the Netherlands. So again, they were recruited in Eastern Europe or Central Europe, and then made to work in Western Europe. Unfortunately, although they filed a case of human trafficking, the European judges apparently dismissed it, saying that you know, they're not slaves. They have contracts and they work their contracts. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just an example of some of the things that they went through. So paid way below the minimum wage for the country. If they have damages and fines, they get deducted from their salaries. If they don't drive, they do not get paid. So they also lived in their trucks for months at a time. Can you imagine living in a foreign country and you're house essentially is your cabin. You know, behind where the driver sits, there's a little bench there where they sleep. They wash their clothes in buckets, and sadly, this thing is going on. As you can see, the first one we attended to, or I attended to, when in my role as a journalist and as a leader of a Filipino organization, was to attend to those people mentioned in the news report, and we had to assist them. But in the end, only two of them were allowed to stay in the Netherlands. The others were asked to leave, as far as I know. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the example here, number 3, are overseas domestic workers in the UK. So basically, overseas domestic workers in the UK now are not allowed to change their visa, so that when they come in as visitors. Although the visitors really are their employers. They are workers for the visitors. So unfortunately, even if they're mistreated or whatever, they cannot escape the employers now, whereas before they could. And the only way to resolve that is for them to run away by claiming that they are victims of modern slavery and human trafficking. But unfortunately, the standards to meet are very, very high, and the Home Office normally are skeptical about their complaints. Next slide, please. So I'm just listing some of the things here. Some are very serious, like, you know, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and so on. These are classic human trafficking sort of signifiers that someone is being human trafficked. But as I said, it's very difficult to persuade the authorities. Okay, because of the time, I'm moving on, please, to the next slide. Okay, so asylum cases, because the domestic workers are unable to persuade them that they're victims of human trafficking, the domestic workers and many others decide to then apply for asylum. Unfortunately, although this application is free in the UK, when they go to a solicitor or a lawyer, they get charged around £2,000, and they obviously get their 2-year card, which says they are claiming asylum. Unfortunately, a lot of them get refused at the end of the 2 years, and so they're back to square one. Next slide, please. Okay, so I really just wanted to indicate the issues in terms of human trafficking and modern slavery. And there are a lot of things that we could do, but perhaps we could talk about them later. Okay, and then there's another one. Lily. Okay, and I'm just saying this because these are very current immigration developments in the UK. If you have somebody here working in the UK, if they're on their own and they want to bring their spouse, they need to earn a lot of money to bring them over. So the minimum required is 38,700, and that's from about April, May. And there's an increase in the usage of the National Health Service. If you're a carer, if you're a student, you will not allowed to bring independents anymore. This is, as I say here, killing people on low wages because they cannot fall in love or have families overseas. Otherwise, they cannot bring them to Fortress Britain. And as they say, falling in love outside Britain will be very expensive or indeed prohibitive. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I passed the time a little bit.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alcantara. Actually, you just made it in your time. Thank you so much for considering, and thank you so much for sharing this information with us from Manila. It's very late there, and I hope you'll have a good rest after our meet and greet. Very interesting examples, I have to say. I feel a little bit addressed because I'm from the Netherlands. But
right.
yeah, I think very, very good to know. And I never heard of it. So thank you so much for informing us. Sure, there will be questions a little bit later. And we also have some ladies from the Women's Federation UK here on board. So let's go to our next speaker of this evening. We finally have the opportunity to also welcome a lady speaker, Mrs. Joanna ADESUVA REITERER. She has a fashion and film company, JOADRE. I don't know if I pronounced that well. And she is trying to foster positive social change. And she's based in Nigeria and Austria, if I'm correct, but you can you can correct me if I'm wrong. And she's very passionate about prevention and education of the youth, especially in Nigeria. Mrs. ADESUVA REITERER, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy good evening and good morning, good afternoon. Depends on where you are. I'm currently in Austria and it's pretty late and cold. About 2 weeks ago, I was in Nigeria shooting a film. That was real good weather, but I'm grateful. And my name is Joanna ADESUVA REITERER, and I was born in Nigeria, raised in Nigeria, but I've spent more than half of my life now between Austria and Nigeria. So I must say that I'm very lucky in the sense, I'm very privileged in the sense that even though I come from a family, a broken family, in the sense that my parents separated when I was very young and that caused lots of hardship, I was so lucky to have my mother. My mother has been a teacher. She has refused to retire. She loves teaching. So growing up as a teacher's daughter, I had to read, I had to learn. Even though I didn't want to, I had to wake up at 5 o'clock to do some preparations, even though there was no exams coming. So at that time, I didn't like it, I must say. But now in hindsight, right, I have an adult son right now, and I have a daughter, a teenage daughter. And now looking at my work, I really appreciate this foundation my mother gave me, the education, not just the education, but the ability to want to learn, you know. So when I realized about the issue of human trafficking in Austria, that was around 2006, I started an organization called Exit with the support of many volunteers. And at that time, nobody was really talking about human trafficking from Nigeria for the purpose of sexual exploitation to Europe. It was a new topic, and I felt like, no, why are young women brought to Europe and exploited? We have to talk about it. So my background is in the creative industry. So we made a film, and this film helped us to bring this topic to the limelight. And through the help of journalists, we were even able to set a presidential case. And for the first time in the history of Austrian law, we were able to make that a Nigerian woman who is affected by human trafficking, who was a survivor, was able to get a stay and protection by the government. But listening to the previous speaker, I'm just like remembering the whole hurdles you get in the law system, in the legal system. They're not allowed to stay. They should leave the country. They have to prove, they have to go to the police. It's so complex. We spent about 6 years trying to fight just that one case. And we were working with lawyers, law firms. And within this period, I was like, listen to the stories, listen to people walking months through the Sahara Desert, losing friends and people they walked on the desert with. I was like, no, people are so traumatized. The survivors are so traumatized when they get to the destination of exploitation that literally the traffickers can coerce them, do what they like with them. And the whole process of the asylum case and trying to get the legal system to support them is also re-traumatizing. So me and a couple of friends were like, no, we have to go back to Nigeria and try to prevent this from happening. Because at the end of the day, it is so difficult to, there is no word for it, like repair the trauma that someone has gone through all these years. So we found it more important to prevent. So we started the social company called JOADRE, and we started with fashion, not because that was what we wanted to do, but looking into the space, we looked at, we worked with groups and organizations where they counseled vulnerable people, so people that really wanted to travel out of the country and they were ready to be recruited. And most of these young women, the skills they had was either catering or sewing, tailoring. And I was like, let's stay with the fashion because I have a background there. So we started a production where we were training young women. At the beginning, we focused on young women, but it got to a point where we realized that in the battle to create peace, in the struggle to create an environment where people are not exploited, we need to work with men. It's not a female topic. We need to get both sides on board. So we started to work with men in our production, and we're able to, after 3-4 years of training, we're able to start producing bags that we were selling in Europe. So that was how we're financing the whole project until COVID happened. And that shut us down for almost 2 years. And there was a mass protest in Nigeria. So I then took this opportunity to look into our work. We've been counseling women who were victims of human trafficking in Europe. We've been having lots of workshops, raising awareness about this topic. We've had this training, handcraft training in Nigeria. But most of all, what we got to realize is that there are so many people, millions of young Nigerians who have learned a skill, who are hardworking, who really want to start. But sometimes what's really missing is the financial resources to start, the knowledge of how to build a business around the skills they have, and the network. So what we started to create through the support of the Austrian government was in 2020, we started to create a digital educational platform, which is ready right now. So we have 2 platforms. One is the text content blog website, JOADRE.com. And then we have the audiovisual platform called tribe.joadre.com. I could share the links later. So on the blog website, we have thousands of readers from English-speaking West African countries and then South Africa as well, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and Uganda. And all these young people are trying to look for ideas. They're trying to look for resources to start their business. So what we do is try to network them, but our capacity is very limited. So we're always excited to get partners who want to support these young people to start their businesses. So we literally left the fashion, just the tailoring, and expanded it because we have lots of people coming in with different skills, from videographers to people who want to start a hairdressing salon. So it's all about the effort to give young people, through the skills they already have, give them the possibility to earn an income that will create dignity, that will create the kind of life they want to live and the kind of life they love. Because we strongly believe that if people are content, if they can afford their own lives, they can pay their own bills, they can educate themselves, they see perspective and prospects around them, it will be so difficult to lure that person into going into a foreign country and then exploiting that person. And if that person gets lured into a foreign country, they get there, they will be ready to fight for their rights because we educate them. We let them know that even if you now think of you want to go abroad, because the message is not do not migrate. I totally disagree with the concept of everybody must stay in their country. No, the world is dynamic right now. I believe that we should have that mobility. People should be able to move within different continents and create the life they want. Why is the Austrian passport more valuable than the Nigerian passport? These are questions, fundamental questions, because we're all humans. These are questions that I think we should be debating. So for us, we tell young people, even if you want to migrate somewhere else, know what you want to do. Know your rights, be prepared for it, be equipped. So that's the message. And on our audiovisual platform, one thing we really saw now happening in Nigeria is we have a population that's about 50% beneath 25, 30 years. So very young population, about 220 million people. Right now I'm sitting in a country with just 8 million people, so you can feel the enthusiasm, the dynamic that's going on in Nigeria right now. So we are focusing on the creative industry. Because what we realized when we were working with young people in the production, when they're sewing, it's that stories need to be told. African stories need to be told to feel empowered. People need to be able to tell their own stories from their own perspective. We cannot continue to put on the African continent the global story. We've experienced life very differently. So our next phase, starting from next year, we're opening an office now in Nigeria, starting from next year, is a content production platform, because we want to get more creatives to be able to tell their story and have a voice in the world. So that's I'm really excited that I'm here today, and I've been invited to talk about what we're doing, and I really look forward to having some of you as partners.
Thank you so much, Mrs. ADESUVA, REITERER.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your great project and explaining to us how you're supporting vulnerable people, vulnerable ladies with the creative world, and it sounds very, very exciting. So we're looking forward to following your achievements and partner with you. Thank you so much for your presentation. So we continue with our next speaker, Mr. Mutuku Nguli. He is Chief Executive Officer of Counter Human Trafficking Trust in East Africa, based in Nairobi, and he's educating the youth in rural areas in Kenya and other countries in East Africa, focusing on prevention and helping victims of trafficking. Mr. Mutuku Nguli, we're very happy that you're here, that you're able to join us. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Olivera. It's a great pleasure actually to be part of this very dynamic team of experts from various parts of the world. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so, thank you. So basically, I had an organization which is almost like a network, and we have support programs in Tanzania and Uganda, and mainly we focus on efforts that would bring both education to the population, but also provide alternative opportunities of livelihood for either survivors or would be victims of trafficking, because basically there is a very huge population of young people within the East African region, and most of them are unemployed, they're seeking work, they don't have livelihoods, and therefore most of them are choosing to leave the countries and move to other places where they feel they can get some income generating opportunities. In this effort, we have found ourselves again having to deal with very serious exploitative cases of the people who have moved out, expecting to have a better sense of work and income to support themselves and also their families. And this has, in effect, become a major thrust within the sub-region of East Africa. In fact, when we look at Kenya alone, 80% of the population is actually aged between 0 and 35 years, and that's a very young population. Therefore, you can imagine what that means every year with millions that are graduating from schools, from colleges, from universities, and basically not having work to do. This has made many move out of the country. However, one of the key things that I wanted to mention from this conversation is also how we are engaging very effectively with the regional organizations like the African Union, the East African Community, in the effort of bringing to bear the global compact on migration, which is actually a very new perspective of how the world should be looking at migration. I liked what one of the speakers has said about people have to be led to move, and mobility should not be a factor that worries the world, but rather how do we create a conducive environment that enables people to move and move without having to go through a lot of challenges and a lot of restrictions and a lot of limitations, because that is, I think, one of the key fundamental things that we have to deal with when it comes to migrants who are out there either for work or in seeking opportunities for education and other professional endeavors that they may be out for. So having looked at that, we have had a very concerted effort to look at what we need to do. So you can move to the next slide, kindly. I was giving a prelude. So as an organization, we were registered in 2018, and we have slowly worked and brought our presence in other member countries within the East African sub-region. The next slide. So as an organization, our vision is to have a world that is free from the shackles of human exploitation and the prosecution of every man or woman who dares take up this negative, act of exploitation, especially taking advantage of the vulnerable in the society. And as an institution, again, we are dedicated to the elimination of trafficking of persons, and we endeavor to do this in partnership with others. So that's mainly our focus. Next. Yeah. So from here, I've just placed a few slides that you can interact with. Basically, these are slides that are demonstrating the kind of work we are doing with partners and training. Most of these are actually about trainings, and like this one here was a training in Nairobi, training government officials who are working with children in some of the some of the deprived areas. And this was another location in Kenya, also a city called Nakuru. And basically, this is also preparing people who can also be ambassadors and become the lead in terms of training for others who may also participate in the emancipation of the society in the various parts of the country. Move to the next. Yeah, this is a different part in Kenya too, and basically we have invested a lot in young people. So because most of the people who are moving out and getting into situations of human trafficking are young people, and especially young mothers. And I have to say this very clearly, because we have found a very challenging situation where we have to deal with young mothers who also have to take care of young children. And in one of our very recent surveys, we've just realized it's not working very well, especially for their children, where they leave them behind and under the care of other people who may not be necessarily very helpful to them. And therefore, this is now how we are trying to get the young people involved so that they can also help to educate and move the message far and wider to the greater population of the younger people in the region. The next slide. As you can see, this is actually a training we mounted for the police, Kenya Police. And basically what we were trying to help them understand is what they need to do when they encounter victims of human trafficking or when they encounter traffickers in their acts. So we have expanded our catchment into the work that police have to do, and we help them to understand what they need to be doing right. So in Tanzania, we have just documented a bit of the work that we do there, and mainly we understand we quantify that there is a lot of internal rural-urban migration in Tanzania, where people are moved, especially young people, for work and for illicit businesses like prostitution and the rest, and within the different sectors. But when we established the Tanzania project, we set up a platform through which an intelligence team was set up, and it has been spearheaded and has been doing very well over the years. As we speak today, it's very successful. In Uganda, I think I captured a bit of what happened during the COVID period and afterwards. So we have like 205 companies that were registered under the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agency, and mainly targeting the Gulf informal labor market. And this is one of the key areas that we work with alongside many other partners in Uganda. Although we also have like the neighboring regions to Kenya, where most of the children are being trafficked to Kenya. 90% of those being girls. They are escaping levels of poverty and forced marriages and female genital mutilations, FGM. In Ethiopia, we know that they have a very well documented movement of labor migration towards Middle East, and they mainly use what we call the Eastern route through Djibouti, Somalia to Yemen, and sometimes they also move towards South Africa to Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, and then they get into South Africa. So human trafficking, we manage by legitimate and quasi-legal agencies closely linked to irregular migration, and that is where we find the dynamic in Ethiopia also being very unique in its sense. Anti-trafficking task force coordinates stakeholders. Several proclamations, which are equivalent to act, decisions and policy declarations, have been enacted to reinforce combating human trafficking, and all these are part of the instruments that the Ethiopian government is trying to use to do the work. And finally, I would just say that human trafficking is the business of stealing the freedom of another person for profit. That's my summary of what we are doing in this part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nguli, for sharing this beautiful project with us, and also for your final definition also of what human trafficking is. Quite impressed. Thank you very much. Yes, I think your presentation was clear enough, and I think there was lots more to say. But we will go to our final speaker. Thank you all so far for being with us, the speakers and our guests. It's very amazing to us that we can have this platform with all these amazing people doing so much for the greater good and to help creating a better world all together. So we're going to our last speaker, our dear colleague in Nigeria, Mrs. Risa Smart. She's the president of Women's Federation for World Peace in Nigeria, and she will be talking about her project on microcredits. Mrs. Risa, the floor is yours.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Risa Smart at Women Federation for World Peace in Nigeria, and I make presentation today. And our team for employment creation for women in Nigeria. The PowerPoint is coming. Okay, the next, please. Next. Our experience with the Women Federation project is very interesting. And we encourage ourselves to demonstrate effective and notable standard. And the idea was simple enough to start up. Next, please. By giving small amount as microcredit loan to someone living without capital to start up a small business. And we encourage those that have to join the scheme, as we see it as a way to get people out of poverty. Next. We see microcredit plays a significant role in promoting financial inclusion and empowering underserved communities in Nigeria. And we plan and implement the program locally through our team, which engage some bankers who gave us proper guidance on how to manage the fund and help borrowers expand the small business, which would lift it out of poverty. When they pay back the loan, the money can be cycled to more borrowers. Next, please. First, explain about benefit. It aims to alleviate poverty in our communities and promote entrepreneurship and empower our women to start or expand their small businesses. However, provide an inflow of money to put food on the table of our member and non-member, whereby shed light on its significance in promoting financial inclusion and economic growth. Challenges of the project are numerous, but we try to control its excesses, which outreach comes with logistical and field overhead. Making an investment valuation may be crucial capability and almost impossible to penetrate the hinterland. We also experience people's inability to manage their debt, which leads to loan default, but hindering the growth of the program. But we try to do more. But this, the project is after COVID. We started because we have seen so many family difficult to have food on the table. So this is what just one of the participant profile, but I want to start, I'd like to show some of them. On the participant profile, we try to illustrate various interaction of photo and some of the beneficiaries of the program. Anyway. Madam Kitchen is a retailer. She trades on soft drink and bottled water in her local community. At support fund move her business higher. And opposite photo, Miss Katrina is a baker. She bakes bread, cakes, and others for commercial purposes. Next. And our Women Federation staff reach out, go out to have gone to the Mararaba, Nasarawa states and presenting the cash to the women. You have seen some presentation made to the women in the states. Next. Mrs. Maria Mbu, she processes beans powder and fry it into a local delicacy called akara. And her business to encourage her daughter as a goalkeeper in a local community female soccer team. She recently, that time she bought a football for her daughter from her profit from the business. But now that the daughter is now succeeded to be in the female soccer team in the Cross River states now. Next. And Mrs. Gladys sells yam every week at the local markets. Her initial challenge was inability to pay farmers cash for the yam as she did not have a take-off fund. But now all is well. Her business. Next. The Madam Janet Apple sells local food called apple, usually made from cassava. She is now able to buy cassava directly from farmers with cash at a lower rate, and after processing into apple, her sales have increased with higher profit for her. Next, Mrs. Cecilia Ferdinand sells foodstuff in her community. She's a local supplier of basic food ingredients to family in her community. She also able to buy more and sell more now. Mrs. Grace Ode, also beneficiary of the program. She buys fish from local fishermen around the riverside and retail them to local family users. She's able to buy more fish with cash from the fishermen and sell at home and in the markets. Next, this is in the Muslim community and Muslim women not left out, and they joined the microcredit program too. This is the photo participating in the ongoing program. At the photo of the program, women are engaged in sales of local drink produced from Guinea corn called kunu. Also, local drink produced from tiger nuts, but common in here in Nigeria. Also, other daily use. And conclusion. Finally, the microcredit scheme in Nigeria is very effective. We have, we wrote 120, but now we have increased to 130, more than 130 women currently with us, and the women are trying to make remittance as when due. We hope to do more in the coming period, however. We are grateful for a successful microcredit scheme in Nigeria, and we say thank you to all our partners for supporting women to have a lucrative platform of doing business and an organization that is reliable and considerate to women and family to grow in small-scale business unit in community across Nigeria. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Risa Smart, for the presentation of your amazing project, for also sharing the challenges and also the success stories and the ongoing developments. Thank you for your hard work in Nigeria. And yeah, we're coming to the close of our presentations, and we would like to again thank all of our guests present here and also all of our friends to learn more about our speakers today. And I would like to introduce my colleague, Mrs. Merli Sokila Blaschke, Women's Federation Carinthia, and our liaison for Austria Philippines for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Kyungin. First of all, I want to express my sincere gratitude to all the speakers. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. Also to those, your valuable inputs, practical solutions of this best practices, and contribution to this significant virtual meeting. Thanks also to my colleagues at WFWP UN Vienna team for making this virtual meet and greet possible. And also to those joining us online from different parts of the world. With God's love as our moral compass, let us all stand up for the future that we all want, a nation of love and peace. To illustrate this thought, I want to end with a small parable. When we look fish need new borders. When we look at a river, which is flowing through 2 countries or more, we can see that fish living in this river don't only stay within one nation, but they travel freely from one nation to the other. They don't need passports, visas, or other documents. There are no border controls for them. The species, which is supposed to live above the control, above the fish or other animals, which the humans, however, invent all sorts of papers, documents, and other strange things. If people want to cross from one region, which they call nation, to another, if we consider that humans should be the lords of creation, it raises at least philosophical questions. Thank you, and God be with you all.
Thank you so much, Merle, for your closing remarks. And indeed, nature, there are no boundaries or passports or visas needed. So I hope we can work to a more harmonious world altogether. So yes, we hope you could enjoy and learn from our speakers of this great presentations. And now it's actually time for questions and answers, for comments, maybe some questions to one of our speakers about their projects. So you could either send your message in your question in the chat, but also just raise your hand or unmute yourself if that's possible. If you would have any questions to one of our speakers or any comment that you would like to share or ask anyone, the group here. So please don't be shy and raise your hand or unmute yourself to ask a question.
I have a question to, I forgot the name, the first one who was speaking. I think it's
Mr. Patrick ERLANDSON?
Yeah, is he still here?
He's still here.
Okay. I want to ask you what you are. Are you a psychologist or something like this?
I'm a teacher.
Teacher, that goes in that direction. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any publications?
None yet. We have a number of things in the works for for next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find you are very interesting about this father-son thing, because I was this, of course, this covers your field of teaching. I was training as a teacher myself. I never worked as a teacher, but I had all this education, you know, psychology and all this stuff. And I was also working with children for some time. So it's very interesting what you're talking about. It needs further exploration.
Yeah, there's a lot more. I
know.
We can keep in touch because I can explain a lot more. And there's so much
are you from the States?
Yes, I'm in California.
California.
Yeah.
Okay. It never rains in California. You know that.
Very rarely.
Okay.
And it never snows.
Okay, thanks.
Not in Los Angeles.
And
thank you.
And I have another question to Mr. Mutuku.
Muli.
I can't read what I wrote. From Kenya. What is that right? What I understood, that there's a lot of human trafficking also within Africa, because we always think, you know, in Europe we always see on the news all these bad, evil immigrants are coming again. They want to overrun our continent and all this sort of stuff from the propaganda. But I never knew that there is human trafficking in Africa. I never knew that. Is that correct? Within African nations, is that correct? What I understood, I don't know.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ferdinand. Africa, we have a very serious human trafficking phenomenon. By the way, I think it could be one of the worst now in the world, especially which is it's being mainly perpetuated by poverty, unemployment, youth bulge. There are a number of factors that are actually making the vulnerabilities, circumstances that lead young people into being trafficked or smuggled a reality. So it's a bigger problem than you might think. It's both internal and also external, as in it's happening both inside countries, and then there are also trafficking rings that are actually moving people outside of the countries of origin for exploitation.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. I was very happy to have listened tonight, because I didn't know that. We always hear how bad and evil and whatever those people are who come from Africa to Europe. This is a lot of propaganda. Of course, it's true, but this is half truth, because they use it for propaganda. Yeah, because in Africa, nobody says that there's a problem in Africa. I never heard any news, nothing, no documentary, nothing here in Europe saying that there's a lot of problem in Africa. These guys are using propaganda, propaganda here, propaganda there, everywhere propaganda. I'm sick of it. Thank you very much.
Right.
Now I shut up. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ferdinand. And it makes sense. Perhaps the news reporters should mention more often that there are also big problems in Africa. That's why maybe some people want to come here. So it makes sense, but maybe they should mention it more, and the specific problems that should be addressed, and how we actually can perhaps support these specific problems. I've noticed that many of our speakers have managed to ask for government support in Europe, but also in their respective countries they're working in. So that's also one of the things that we noticed in the UN. We really need the support of our governments, our own governments, for supporting our projects, but also governments between the continents, so we can work together more effectively. I wanted to ask, yes,
Mr. Chinik Alcantara asked in the chat exactly this question.
Yes,
human trafficking is a global problem. How can we do it from the face of an intelligent government? This is his question, Mr. Alcantara.
Mr. Alcantara, he's already spotlighted. So I indeed wanted to give Mr. Alcantara the floor to a little bit elaborate also on the other post in the chat. Mr. Alcantara, you also mentioned, you have asked this question and also mentioned a few things. Could you elaborate a bit more and perhaps ask the audience or other speakers what's on your mind? Please unmute yourself as well.
Yes, well, actually, just a point of clarification about what Patrick said. I know he's focusing on the father, on the male, as the perpetrators of human trafficking. But in the case of overseas domestic workers, I believe it's actually the women employers who are doing the exploitation of the migrant workers from the Far East, from Africa, from South Asia. So it's not all men, unfortunately. So the two sides have to be tackled. Anyway, so the other thing I was saying is, we know that it's a big problem, but how do we persuade the local governments or the host governments to actually, as in the case of the drivers, for example, well, they're just saying there is no human trafficking involved, but actually it's very clear. You're recruited in Eastern Central Europe, and then suddenly you're brought to another country to do your work. So how do we address that? I mean, I haven't got all the answers, of course, so if people have ideas, it would just be helpful. And the minor thing is, you know, in the UK, trafficking is a big issue, particularly with the boat people going to the UK from different countries. And the UK government is trying very hard to send them all to Rwanda, which, you know, is obviously going to be a massive shock to Africa. And I wondered if people have any views about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alcantara. Is there anyone who would like to react? Personally, I would like to respond, like, because here in the Netherlands, for example, we know this concept of that, for example, Eastern European countries or people from Eastern European countries are sometimes not treated well. So people from Poland are not treated well according to the Dutch conditions or how they ought to be. But like this variation, I never heard about it. So I'm very grateful for this example again. Yeah, I was just in Rwanda for a few weeks, and I was very surprised to hear that again. I think now for the third time they're trying. UK is trying to get this proposition there or through with the Rwandese government, which is very surprising to me. I could see that Rwanda is a very, or at least the capital, it is a very beautiful, beautiful city and looks very organized, very clean and green. But there are a lot of things that I would wonder, like why, I do not get it. Let me put it that way, that the UK has this idea of sending refugees to Rwanda because there's a lot of external display. But if you look behind that, there are a lot of things. So I will keep it to that. And I would like to give Mrs. ADESUVA REITERER the floor to react as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all the information that I'm able to gather tonight. One thing that we should be aware of is that human trafficking globally has technical definitions. So we've encountered this in the last 15 years, tackling the issue. There has to be certain elements, coercion, there has to be the threat, why can't you live the job? So just the fact that someone is being brought over to another country does not make it human trafficking according to the law, because human trafficking can even still happen without any movement taking place. So there are different forms of human trafficking. Of course, when it comes to the issue of Father Khan, for example, when he talked about empowering and educating the men, I understand that very much is very much needed, because when you talk about human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation, most of the demand fuels the offer. The demand makes that happen. So Europe has had a long history of not addressing the demand. That's a sex client. So there's been different approach to it. Should we ban it? Should we criminalize it and all this? But even that discussion brings men to the table to own it, to talk about it. So I think that's a very important work. And another aspect is, of course, we are living in a global world village now where the different values of different tribes have been lost. So we are all catering towards one value system, a capital value system. So when I think about when I went to school and now look at in Nigeria, but now it's been brought back, history was not taught in school for a long time. So this is one aspect that I feel like we are going back to work on this. People need to be empowered to have their own identity, to understand their identity. If I do not know where I'm coming from, where I'm going to, I'm following the wind and I'm following the values the world is setting for us. And we all live in different spaces. So I think it's so important that the educational aspect of it, teachers should be brought into this. The educational aspect of it, curriculums should be revised. We still have the colonial curriculum in Nigeria. So if young people grow up with this inferiority complex of not being enough, of feeling that you have to go to the far land, you have to go to the West to have the value, you have to get that degree to have the value, they begin to lose their own foundation. So that is exactly why I really want to invite all the speakers today, because we have this platform that we just created called tribe.joadre.com. It's an edutainment platform. If you go to in the media sector in many African countries now, you've got Netflix, Amazon Prime and everything, bringing in an American consumption of being. So what we want to do, and on the other side, people do not all have access to education. Education in the sense of a global space. I see what my teenage child learns in school in Austria and see what the same age learns in school in Nigeria. Why? And we're all still living in a global village. So what we want to do on this platform is like such discussions about your project, what you are doing, how people could really work towards getting out of exploitation. We would love to have this kind of tutorials on our platform. We already have nice speakers on the platform, and this we're launching in the universities in Nigeria starting February. So we want to really make this kind of global education out of the classic curriculum, global education accessible to as much people. So I think that that's so important for us to own our voice, to feel empowered as Africans, and to start creating the kind of spaces we want to have in the African continent, because there is so much opportunities in Nigeria. I literally leave Europe to go to Nigeria to earn my living. There is so much opportunities, but if you do not see it, if you're not shown these opportunities, you will be running to Europe to try to find a life, whereas you have everything right in front of you. Because what's happening right now is you have people being recruited from Nigeria to come to Canada, to come to the UK for care or for low-paid jobs. And these are our young people who've studied, educated, they are leaving the country. So I think one way that we could really tackle the issue of human trafficking and exploitation is to make the government understand and take the responsibility of creating the opportunities on ground. Stop taking the people to care for the old in Europe. These people could build Nigeria, you know, so these are issues that I really want us to discuss on our platform as well. So you're all welcome to talk about it, because we want more people, more young people in Nigeria to know about this global issue so that they can be the ones to tackle it.
Awesome. I have a question. Are there any countries in Africa that have legalized prostitution?
Well, I'm not very informed about that, but I know in Nigeria, and even the region where I come from in Nigeria, it's like not allowed, but it's all in your eyes. It's all there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think it's the same in Kenya and most of the African, especially English-speaking countries. You know, the rules are not necessarily clear that it's illegal, so it's practiced and largely just accepted without any formal structures of law that that promote it. But you can see it all over the place.
Yeah, because I know here in California, I mean, there's efforts kind of being made to little by little move in the direction of legalization, which so you end up actually legalizing trafficking. The rhetoric is all, this is liberating sex work and this is a great thing. We start getting tax money from prostitution, but the actual implication, you know, the implementation of it is you end up protecting traffickers and enabling more trafficking to occur. So I don't know. I was just curious if there are movements to try to legalize prostitution, because there's a very strong kind of effort now in the United States to try to legalize it under the guise of we're going to end human trafficking, but actually it doesn't work that way.
Thanks, Mr. Patrick. Does anyone want to respond to this point? Otherwise, I would like to mention another one as well.
Yeah, actually, if I may say something to Patrick, here in Nairobi, what happens is that this prostitution is not really legalized, and Yeah, people, government get money from it, but not directly. What they may do is they could come to a street where there's commercial sex workers. The police arrests them. That is once the map arrests them, then they go to the cells, they pay something small, and goes back to the streets. You know, that money directly or indirectly goes still to some government bodies. Now, not legally. But we arrest these commercial sex workers, they pay something, they get back to the streets. That is how they get money from them. It's not very easy to legalize officially prostitution in this country, but that way now they earn some money out of it. They recently tried here in Kenya to talk of same-sex gender relationships and the rest. It was highly protested in the streets. Actually, some of the people that were leading protests were members of parliament. So they benefit from it, but not directly. Arrest the sexual workers, they pay something, go back, tomorrow arrest them. That is how it works in most parts of this Nairobi here in Kenya. So that way it's almost illegal, only that is not in books.
Sorry, apologies. My sound was off for a second, and I also have some problem here, so I missed the last few notifications.
Yeah, I think I was just concluding by telling Patrick that it is not really officially legalized here, but people are earning out of it. Arresting these ladies from the streets, they pay something, go back to the streets. Next time they arrest them, so there's no that levy that they pay, but that way they are making payments and people are benefiting out of it. Not directly legalized, but that is how they earn from it. It's a trend that you will find in most streets here in Nairobi.
Okay, thank you so much. So is there anyone who would like to ask any other question? Otherwise, we will close soon. I did see some notifications also in the chat. Mr. Nguli also mentioned something about the earlier remarks. I did not want to voice, but thank you so much for your contribution there as well. So I would like to.
Looks like we've lost Kyung-in all of a sudden with the internet issues. So we're in gallery view at the moment, and I'll just give the contact information. And as soon as Kyung-in comes back, we will be there and go back to Kyung-in. Or Renata, I can spotlight you if I find you. So,
yeah,
this is the contact information. Renata, you have the floor if you'd like to say something. Or Merle.
Yeah.
Merle, you're muted.
No, I might.
Okay, I'm letting Kyung-in back in again.
Yeah. My internet is stable, so this is why I'm also maybe not heard. Is Kyung-in here?
Yes, my apologies. I had some technical issues as well. My apologies. Thank you so much for all of our speakers. I would like to invite everyone to connect and also allow us to exchange information. And without further ado, we want to close with a song for inspiration, and let us connect and meet again for our next meet and greet. Thank you all.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you so much.
Risa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
MOKAYA.
Happy
And
holiday.
Happy New Year in advance. Happy
Same
New
to
Year.
you. Bye.
Anniversary of the world. We remember what life really is all
If you'd
about.
like to be connected, to send us an email.
Thank
And
you
we
very
give your
much for the
full context
invitation.
to you.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We all a part of God's great big family. And the truth, you know, love is all we need. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me. Well, send them your heart, so they know that someone cares, and their lives will be stronger and free. As God has shown us by turning stone to bread. And so we all must lend a helping hand. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones to make a brighter day. So let's start giving. Oh, there's a choice we're making. We're saving our lives. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me. When you're down and out, there seems no hope at all. But if you just believe, there's nowhere we can fall. Well, let's realize, oh, that a change can only come when we stand together as one. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're It's true, we make a better day, just you and me. We are the world, we are the children, our children. We are the ones who make a better day, so let's start giving. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me.
Thank you all. And herewith we conclude our meet and greet. We hope to see you next time. Have a great evening and Merry Christmas. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.